On the way to deliver lunch to my husband, I accidentally discovered that the leather on the back seat cushion of the car had been slashed. I immediately called Sam over to the front of the car. Has the car been lent to anyone recently? Sam's tone paused noticeably. Yesterday I lent it to my assistant, Elena. She took a nap at noon, after resting. She could work with more energy. Why are you suddenly asking? His face showed no change at all, but my heart sank straight to the bottom. My voice trembled as I tried to catch even the slightest hint of guilt in his eyes. How many people were sleeping in it? Seeing my chest rise and fall, Sam grew impatient. What do you mean by that? Are you suspecting me? I let out a cold laugh, dragged him to the back seat, and pointed at the deep scratch mark. What kind of sleeping position would tear open a seat back like this? Sleep again and demonstrate it for me. Chapter 1. Sam's body stiffened abruptly. He froze for a moment, then raised his hand and shook me off. Demonstrate what? Women with long nails scratching things is completely normal. I'm busy with work. Are you really going to make a big deal out of something this trivial right now? Sam had always been the steady type. Even if you slapped him across the face, he could calmly continue discussing the matter at hand. Reactions like this, wasn't it the textbook case of lashing out in anger out of guilt? When I didn't respond, he let out a deep sigh and said helplessly, "There's a dash cam in the car. If you don't believe me, go check it, Victoria. I'm really busy. Can you not make a scene right now?" That helpless tone, paired with the fatigue staining his eyes, made me look like an unreasonable shrew picking a fight. He was such a good actor. I almost laughed out loud. If the dashcam footage wasn't playing on my phone at that very moment, I might have truly believed him. On the screen, two bodies were tightly entangled. A woman's hands were clawing fiercely at the seat back, proclaiming just how intense the movement was. If I hadn't asked my best friend to help recover this footage, I would never have seen such a spectacular scene. I had bet our 7 years together that he wouldn't betray me. He had also bet those same 7 years that I would never actually check the dashcam. Clearly, we both lost the bet. A dense, piercing pain spread through my chest, as if thousands of needles were stabbing in at once. My eyes burned so badly I could barely hold back the surging tears. Sam and I had been together for 7 years, building everything from scratch, from working-class renters in cramped apartments to the people now in control of a major corporation. We endured the hardest, most exhausting days of our lives together. We had seen each other at our most miserable and supported one another all the way here. We had long believed the other to be our one and only, yet we still ended up here. I bit down hard on the soft flesh inside my mouth, but still couldn't figure out where everything had gone wrong. Sam didn't notice my change. He lightly patted my shoulder, then rubbed the top of my head, just like he had done countless times before to comfort me. "All right, Victoria, I know you're still upset that I didn't go with you to the prenatal checkup last month. I made you feel insecure. That's why you're suspecting things like this. I promise you, I'll make time to go with you to the checkup the day after tomorrow, okay?" He pulled at the corner of his mouth, wearing that familiar smile. Everything looked exactly the same as always. My heart felt so sore it was swelling. Nausea churned violently in my stomach as I cut him off coldly. "Sam, have you really not betrayed me?" 25-year-old Sam would have pulled me into his arms and said with aching sincerity, "If I ever truly went blind and did something to betray you, then let me be run over by a car the moment I step outside." Childless and ruined, but 32-year-old Sam panicked and looked away. Even his fingertips were trembling. "Don't overthink it. Let's go back first. I still have a meeting." The nervous expression was exactly the same as back then, but the inside was rotten to the core. The next second, I grabbed the lunchbox I had brought, twisted open the lid, and dumped it straight over his head. "Sam, you really deserve to die." As soup dripped down bit by bit, I picked up my phone and directly booked an abortion procedure. Under his deathly pale gaze, I called my lawyer best friend. "I want a divorce. Help me draft the divorce agreement. I want it tonight." Chapter 2. Sam was clearly suppressing his anger as he grabbed my wrists tightly. His expression complicated. "Victoria, what exactly are you trying to do? If the seat is damaged, then replace it. If you're suspicious, go check the dashcam. What more do you want? Are you going to keep making a scene endlessly?" His chest heaved violently, yet at his raised wrist, a cheap men's watch was exposed. I laughed out loud. when we had just started our business. Sam had once been mocked for wearing cheap stuff. From then on, he lived by one principle: either nothing at all, or the very best. And now, on a man worth hundreds of millions, I saw a watch that cost less than $200. There was even an SS engraving on the strap. I couldn't be bothered to guess why, much less to figure out who those two S stood for. Sam noticed my gaze and instinctively pulled his hand back, letting his sleeve cover the watch. In the brief silence, his tone softened as well. "It's something the junior staff handed out. One for everyone. I just put it on out of courtesy and forgot to take it off. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Using abortion and divorce as threats is pretty pointless. With that, he walked away without waiting for me to speak. I stood there, rooted in place, when a friend request popped up. "I'm Elena, Sam's assistant." There was nothing left in my heart but numbness and desolation. I accepted the request. I had always thought that a proud man like Sam would never bow his head for anyone, but it turned out he would cancel an international conference he had prepared for a long time because the woman he loved was suffering from menstrual cramps. He would bow and apologize to business partners when questioned. He would even personally buy all kinds of supplies for her, hold her in his arms, and wait with her until the brown sugar water was ready. I suddenly remembered the man who, back when we first started out, refused to attend social engagements. The man who wouldn't even have a single drink with the other party for a project, even when I drank myself into stomach bleeding while running deals for him. As I looked at the messages she sent one after another, I finally realized betrayal had come so early. Even a numb heart couldn't withstand such a sharp blade. A wave of aching pain surged through my chest. When I opened her moments, the blood in my body turned cold, and I could no longer suppress the churning in my stomach. The young girl's face looked 70% like mine, paired with the same style of clothing and similar phrasing. Even her age was the same as when I first met Sam. She looked like me, yet not quite. Her hands weren't rough from years of toil. Her eyes still held the clarity of someone untouched by the hardships of life. I suddenly remembered the poorest year of my life, when I ran projects during the day and set up a barbecue stall downstairs from our rental at night to earn a little extra. My body reeking of smoke and grease. Sam had held my hands tightly, heartbroken, blaming himself again and again until he cried. "Your hands used to be white and soft. They only became like this because you suffered so much with me. Victoria, I'm sorry." He said he liked the version of me that hadn't endured so much hardship. So he really went and found himself someone like that. A surge of bitter irony exploded from deep within me, and I nearly vomited up all the acid in my stomach. "Miss Victoria, you've seen what it looks like when he truly loves someone. You should also understand, he doesn't love you anymore. Instead of wasting time for nothing, it's better to step aside sooner and give happiness back to someone else." "Give it back?" I almost doubled over laughing. "You should really ask Sam why he likes you." The other side seemed to choke on my words and went silent. After a long while, she finally sent a photo. "I'm pregnant too. The doctor says it's twins. Sam has already prepared the asset division for the two little ones." In the photo, Sam was caught from a candid angle, talking with a lawyer. The date on the photo was the very day of my last prenatal checkup. And that time, Sam had told me he had an extremely important contract to sign. Chapter 3. That night, Sam did not come home at all, but I saw him on Elena's Moments. Day 333 of our relationship. He says every single day with me is an anniversary. I have nothing, yet because I have him, I have the whole world. Below was the image of a man holding a girl, the two of them dancing in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling window. With just one glance, I recognized it. It was the first house we bought after our startup succeeded. That floor-to-ceiling window was the very style we used to dream about back when we clung to each other in our rented apartment. My nails dug deep into my flesh as I bit down hard on my lower lip. In a daze, scenes from many years ago flooded my mind. The moment we first bought this house, we had once danced a waltz in front of that very same massive window. Sam had held me just like that, pointing at the towering buildings outside the glass and saying to me, "Victoria, we'll dance here for a lifetime. When we have kids, we'll bring them along and dance together. We'll keep dancing until we can't anymore, then our children will push us while we dance. We'll only keep getting better." That night, in front of that enormous window, we clung to each other desperately, whispering every tender promise imaginable. Just like tonight, only this time, it was their passion. All the suppressed emotions burst through the dam in an instant. I rushed into the bedroom and threw away every wedding photo. Then I moved the abortion surgery up. As the anesthesia entered my body, I suddenly remembered the early days of our marriage, when Sam held me in our cramped rental and gently dreamed aloud, "Victoria, do you think our first child will be a boy or a girl? No matter what, we'll definitely be surrounded by children and grandchildren. When you become a little old lady and I become an old man, a bunch of little brats will crowd around us calling us grandma and grandpa, and I'll tell them, right in front of you, just how much grandpa loves grandma. So, Victoria, give me a child." That kind of night, I once believed it would last forever. After leaving the operating room, I saw all the prenatal checkup arrangements Sam had sent me. I knew this was him trying to make peace, so everything could be quietly brushed aside. The absurdity nearly made me laugh through tears. Right then, I made a call and hired more than a dozen people, sending them straight to that house with the massive window. "Smash it. The house is under my name. Don't worry about disputes. Whoever smashes the cleanest and hardest gets extra money." The group marched in loudly. When they entered, Sam was holding Elena, sleeping soundly. Clothes scattered in front of the window and several used condoms in the trash told the whole story of their passion. Soon enough, I received Sam's call. "Victoria, can't we talk this through properly? Tell your people to get out." In the background were loud crashing sounds mixed with a woman's sharp screams and sobs. It sounded like heavenly music. Amid Sam's near breakdown voice, the divorce agreement I had sent by Same City Express was delivered right into his hands. "Sign it, then take your trash and get out. Otherwise, I don't mind making this even bigger." Chapter 4. Over the years, my relationship with Sam had hardly ever run into serious problems. We rarely even argued. In the past, whenever conflicts arose, Sam would always be the first to step back from the dispute and wait until both of us had calmed down. This time, he did the same. Along with the divorce agreement he had signed, there was also a text message. "You're angry right now. I'll be away on a business trip for a few weeks. Let's both calm down and talk properly afterward. Talk about divorce, or about a 3-person relationship." I didn't know, but when I saw the photos of Elena soaking in the romantic atmosphere of Paris, my chest still seized with sharp pain. I remembered last year, when Sam and I had strolled hand in hand through the streets of Paris. Unfortunately, we ran into armed rioters. In less than a second, Sam threw himself in front of me. A bullet pierced through his chest, grazing his heart. He was unconscious for 3 whole days. When he finally woke up, the first thing he did was blame himself for failing to give me a beautiful trip to Paris. And this time, when he went to Paris again, it was no longer for me. Above the travel photos was a small line of text. He said he would give me the most romantic wedding, in the most romantic city in the world. My heart was crushed into dust. I gasped for air, never imagining that Sam could go this far. The past became a blade, and Sam was the one holding the knife. After the heartbreak passed and my thoughts returned, I began seriously preparing for the divorce. When they finalized the wedding dress and suit, I booked my flight and checked in my luggage. When they chose their wedding venue, I sold off all my shares in the company. When they hung a massive wedding photo at the hotel entrance, there was only 1 hour left before my boarding time. Sam thought he had hidden everything perfectly, so when I appeared at his wedding with that young girl, his face drained of all color in an instant. Watching me approach step by step in full dress, Sam opened his mouth again and again, pulling Elena tightly behind him. "Victoria, listen to me." "Sam, I'm not even dead yet. And you're already in such a hurry to find a girl who looks this much like me and play your replacement lover fantasy?" The wedding hotel was one I liked during our travels. The wedding process was what I personally finalized back then. Even the wedding dress was a design custom made to my measurements years ago. "Sam, you're this perfunctory even about marriage. Does this young lady beside you, getting married for the first time, know any of this?" Chapter 5. At my words, Elena's face changed instantly. Her gaze shifted to Sam, disbelief filling her eyes. Sam instinctively turned around, just in time to receive a solid slap from the girl. "Sam, you said it wasn't like this." I stood where I was, watching them entangle and pull at each other, feeling nothing but deep irony. If I remember correctly, even this church was modeled after the style we once liked. Tears brimmed in the girl's eyes, her face flushing red with anger and resentment. Sam, you're truly disgusting. Sam looked at me helplessly, then at Elena, clearly unable to decide whom to comfort. Victoria, I can explain what happened today. He looked at me, shielding the girl behind him, letting her pound his back again and again with her fists. The scene made it look as though I were the villain who had come to ruin a loving couple's wedding day. Murmurs rose throughout the church. It seemed no one quite understood what was happening, so I clapped my hands, signaling the people behind me to play the dashcam footage. If you want to explain, why don't you start by explaining this? Two bodies entwined. The sound of mutual panting and calling each other's names instantly filled the entire church. Sam's expression changed abruptly. Even the hand gripping Elena loosened, but his gaze shifted from my face to my now flat lower abdomen. Victoria, you knew all along, so you really had the baby aborted? His voice trembled, laced with disbelief. I looked at him coldly, watching the passionate performance he was about to put on. Sure enough, the next moment, Sam's face flushed red. Victoria, you knew how hard it was for us to get this child. I know. Blood rushed through me, my chest heaving violently. I never imagined he would have the nerve to question me like this. In the 7 years I had been with him, we had never managed to have a child. For that, I swallowed countless pills, saw countless doctors, and in the end went through IVF more than a dozen times before finally, with great difficulty, getting pregnant. I knew all of this, and so did he. The murmurs in the vast church were drowned out by the sound of our breathing. Sam froze for a moment, even ignoring the cries of the girl behind him. He walked toward me slowly, step by step, tears actually streaming down his face. Victoria, you shouldn't have been so impulsive. He tried to reach out to hold me, to touch my belly, to call my name, only for everything to turn into a scream in the next instant. Ah, Sam, do you remember what you once said? If you ever did something to betray me, then you deserve to be cut off without descendants. A white blade in, a red blade out. Sam curled up on the ground in agony, gritting his teeth. He looked at me, his face streaked with sweat or tears, I couldn't tell which. Amid the chaos, Elena was lifted up and rushed away. She followed Sam to the hospital, one for saving a life, one for terminating a pregnancy, and I boarded a plane bound for a foreign land. Chapter 6. Sam felt as though he had just woken from a very long dream. In the dream, he held Victoria's hand with one hand, cradled their child with the other, and stood in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling window, eating an ordinary, unremarkable dinner together. The Victoria beside him had fine lines creeping into the corners of her eyes. Her palms were still roughened by years of work, and her hair was no longer as smooth and glossy as it had been when she was a young girl. Yet the faint scent of oranges on her body was so familiar, so reassuring. She was his Victoria. When the dream ended, his lower body was numb, devoid of sensation. He shifted slightly, and an inexplicable soreness surged up from deep within his chest. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of the girl sleeping in the neighboring bed. Instinctively, he called out, "Victoria." The moment the name left his mouth, his head throbbed with splitting pain. At the same time, waves upon waves of memories flooded into his mind. Sam suddenly vomited all over the floor, filth mixed with streaks of blood. Only then did his consciousness fully return, and he realized what had happened. He remembered meeting a girl who looked very much like Victoria. Their first encounter had been at a recruitment interview. The moment the girl appeared in a sharp black suit, he had felt as though he were seeing the younger Victoria who once struggled alongside him. As they interacted more, he was startled to discover just how many similarities the girl shared with Victoria. Yet she also had her own stubbornness and independence. For the first time, Sam lost focus within his marriage. Among hundreds of applicants, he singled out the girl's resume and placed her directly into the position of his personal assistant. Because of this, he guiltily told Victoria that she didn't need to come to the company so often anymore. He said he wanted her to stay home and focus on preparing for pregnancy, but in truth, he was simply afraid they would meet. Still, Sam warned himself again and again that he absolutely could not cross the line. He deliberately kept his distance from the girl, until he saw her drink herself into a stomach hemorrhage during business entertainment, work late into the night until she collapsed asleep at her desk, and even endure severe menstrual pain, her face pale, yet still force herself to stand in high heels. In that instant, Sam thought of far too many things. He thought of the guilt he felt toward the young Victoria, of the many promises he had made but never fulfilled, of all the beautiful moments they once shared in their youth. So for the first time, he canceled a long-scheduled meeting at the last minute, just to take care of this hardworking young girl. After that, Sam abruptly realized that his heart had begun to tremble, a heart that had gone years without passion with Victoria suddenly, miraculously, showed traces of its former intensity. The change terrified him. On one hand, he watched Victoria endure endless suffering for IVF. On the other, he found himself projecting her younger self onto the assistant in his office. It was despicable. He couldn't keep making the same mistake. Sam immediately instructed his secretary to arrange Elena's dismissal. A generous severance package and recommendation letters to other companies had already been prepared. But the girl cried and dropped to her knees in front of him. "I don't know what I did wrong that makes you insist on firing me. I can learn. I can change. Being able to enter this company is an incredible stroke of luck for me. I've worked so hard to adapt. Please give me another chance. I swear I'll make you satisfied." Even her crying voice sounded exactly like hers. Irritation grew in Sam's chest, and he suddenly recalled many years ago, when he had offended investors and nearly driven the company to bankruptcy. Back then, Victoria had also gone behind his back, humbling herself before investors, apologizing and begging on his behalf. When he found out, Sam cried like a child and swore he would never let Victoria suffer such humiliation again. But this time, Sam forced himself to endure it. He had someone escort the girl out of sight, out of mind. That night, there was a banquet. Sam unexpectedly saw Elena there, working as a server. Their eyes met. Embarrassment and shame made the girl nearly drop her tray as she ran out. By the artificial fountain outside the hotel, Sam heard her crying as she poured out her sorrow to the water. It was there that Sam learned of Elena's feelings for him. Rationally, he understood everything, but seeing her like that, no amount of reason could survive. He took off his jacket and stepped forward, wrapping it around the girl. In the hotel's presidential suite, aided by alcohol, he completely crossed the line. At that moment, Victoria was searching the hotel for Sam. It was Sam's first night not coming home, his first time being unreachable, and that day, her IVF had finally succeeded. In fact, when Sam pressed the girl down onto the bed, he saw the incoming call on his phone, wife. Again and again, guilt turned into stimulation, irritation turned into passion. Sam completely lost his reason. After that day, it was as if a floodgate had been opened. He spiraled out of control. At first, he thought that since Victoria had been unable to conceive for so long, perhaps it would be better to let Elena have the child and bring it home to raise. He even prepared arrangements for Elena after giving birth. Coincidentally, after that night of disappearance, Victoria decided to wait until the pregnancy was stable before telling Sam. So when Sam accompanied Elena to confirm her pregnancy that night, he also received news that Victoria was pregnant. The past tangled together like a chaotic knot, leaving Sam's mind in complete turmoil. Did he really love Elena? But seeing Victoria shattered, he no longer cared about anything. He even immediately thought of having Elena terminate the pregnancy and cutting things off completely. Then why had he still betrayed Victoria? Was it simply because Elena resembled her younger self? Just as he was on the verge of collapse, the girl in the next bed stirred. "Sam, where is our child?" Chapter 7. Elena forced herself to sit up. Her now flat abdomen already said everything. She remembered what Victoria had said at the wedding and looked at Sam. Her face drained of color. What she said, "It's true, isn't it?" It was phrased as a question, yet her tone was one of certainty. Elena was on the verge of collapse, a sharp ache spreading through her chest. She had actually known from the beginning that she resembled Victoria, so she had deliberately learned everything about her. Her choice of words, her style of dress, everything, just to enter Sam's company. To her surprise, she became Sam's assistant right away. At first, she only wanted to rely on that resemblance to find a decent job, but day after day of close contact made her want more. Especially when Sam broke his own rules for her again and again, her heart swayed uncontrollably. Later, when Sam told her to resign, She panicked only for a moment before quickly using the information she had learned as his assistant to seize one last chance. People are greedy. At first, she only wanted to stay by his side. In the end, she wanted to possess his heart completely, watching his meticulous care for her, even seeing him postpone Victoria's prenatal checkups time and time again for her sake. Wearing that cheap watch despite everyone's gaze, she truly believed Sam had fallen in love with her. Fallen in love with Elena. After another bout of intimacy, she heard him admit with his own mouth that he loved her. So she dared to want more. She yearned for a wedding, for the hope of truly becoming husband and wife with this man. But she knew clearly that Sam would never divorce for her. So she deliberately left marks on the car seat. And when she saw Victoria and Sam arguing, she went and added Victoria as a contact. Everything had been unfolding exactly as she had planned, so why had it all ended up like this? Tears fell uncontrollably. Her shoulders shook. Her head was buried deep between her knees. She waited, hoping that maybe Sam would come over to comfort her. As long as he held her once, she was willing to forgive everything, willing to believe that Sam truly loved her. But in the long silence, all she heard was a faint sigh. "I'm sorry. I'm the one who wronged you both. I'll compensate you. A house, a car, money, a job, whatever you ask for." Ignoring the pain from just having surgery, Elena sprang out of bed and, with all her strength, slapped Sam across the face. "Sam, you said the one you love is me." Her collapsed scream, mixed with heavy gasps for air, left the room filled with nothing but their breathing. "I'm sorry." Only now did Sam finally see clearly that all he had ever wanted was to compensate the Victoria who had suffered with him in her youth. "Don't blame Victoria." Elena completely broke down. She immediately submitted her resignation and threw away the ring she had worn for less than 24 hours. But almost at the same time, Sam saw the video of himself and Elena in the car appear in the company group chat. Within a single minute, Sam deleted it clean. Still, many people had already seen who the protagonists were, yet Sam had no mind left to comfort the collapsing Elena. After 7 years together, he understood Victoria just as well. If she hadn't been utterly heartbroken, pushed to the edge and determined to cut everything off, she would never have done something so final. Ignoring the blood seeping from the torn wound below, he shoved Elena aside as she blocked him, demanding answers, frantically calling Victoria while walking out. Only when the call failed did Sam realize he had been blocked. He immediately had his secretary investigate where Victoria could possibly go. All these years, aside from business trips, she had almost never left the city on her own. That very night, Sam ran through every place in the city that he and Victoria had ever been to since they met. With each place, his heart sank another inch. The clearer the memories became, the more painful the torment grew. He searched the entire city where they had spent 7 years together. Every corner, yet there was no trace of her anywhere. Sam even put apology messages on all the giant screens in shopping malls across the city. Days passed one by one, without a single piece of news. Not until the third night of searching did Sam finally return home. The moment he pushed open the door, the familiar scent made his heart leap, only to sink into the abyss the next second. The house was pitch dark, empty and hollow. When he reached the bedroom, Sam collapsed completely onto the bed. Opening his eyes again, he suddenly realized that more than half the room was gone. He frantically opened cabinet after cabinet, then rushed into the walk-in closet. In the end, he found their wedding photos and all their couple items in the trash can, including the ring and the abortion procedure form. His collapse came in an instant. He should have noticed it earlier. He should have noticed it starting from that night by the floor-to-ceiling window. But he always believed himself clever enough to deceive Victoria, treating her like a fool. He had even spent that very night, after being exposed, celebrating a so-called anniversary with Elena in the first house he and Victoria had earned with their entire youth. It was absurd beyond measure. Sam dared not imagine what kind of resolve it had taken for Victoria to empty the house of everything, nor how much pressure she must have endured to go to the hospital alone and abort the child they had struggled so hard to conceive. At that thought, darkness swallowed Sam's vision. A crushing pain wrapped tightly around his heart as he collapsed heavily to the ground. Chapter 8. When Sam woke up again, the first thing that came to his mind was the divorce agreement. Yes, he and Victoria still hadn't gone to register the divorce. He casually bought a local SIM card and immediately called Victoria. Victoria. The moment the call connected, The other end recognized his voice and was about to hang up. Sam hurriedly spoke, cutting in before the call could be ended. The divorce registration? We haven't registered the divorce yet. Even if you want a divorce, you can't just disappear without a word. The motion of hanging up stopped on the other end. After a long silence, Sam heard a man's voice. All right, I'll pass the message on to her. Every drop of blood in Sam's body seemed to freeze. He almost couldn't believe what he just heard. A man's voice. Victoria was with another man. But by the time he came back to his senses, the call had already ended. He called again, no answer. A surge of jealousy rolled violently in his chest. Sam wished he could teleport straight to Victoria, but all he had now was a phone number, and the other side wasn't picking up. He waited from dawn till night, and from night till dawn. Finally, Sam received a friend request on WeChat. It was Victoria's lawyer. After coordinating the divorce procedures with the lawyer, he finally got a confirmed message. Victoria would return to complete the formalities with him. Forgetting all about the man, Sam immediately began preparing overnight. He locked himself in the study for several days straight, then specially went to have the same outfit custom-made, the one he had worn when he proposed to Victoria years ago. A month later, at the airport entrance, he finally saw Victoria as he wished. But beside Victoria stood an unexpected guest. A man, somehow familiar. Sam grabbed Victoria and pulled her behind him, trying to block the man from her. Victoria swept a cold glance over him instead, like a peacock showing off. He was dressed in a high-end tailored suit, the exact same style he had worn when he proposed to her back then. In one hand, he held a huge bouquet of roses. It had been years since Victoria had seen such a large bouquet of roses. It was ridiculous. She shook off his grip and turned to get into the car. Victoria, I want to talk to you alone. When Sam said this, his eyes were fixed fiercely on the man beside her. Victoria only glanced back at him once. After we're done at the Civil Affairs Bureau, I'll talk to you. For a moment, Sam felt hurt, but afraid she might change her mind. He hurried to follow. He wanted Victoria to get into his car, but she waved him off and hailed a taxi instead. Along the way, Sam's emotions were extremely complicated. On one hand, seeing her meant there was still hope. On the other, Victoria's attitude filled him with unease. He cooperated obediently with her through the entire process. What he was thinking, though, was that there was still a 1-month cooling-off period anyway. Only after leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau did he finally get the chance to speak with Victoria alone. What do you want to say? Victoria, I was wrong. I know what I did was disgusting, but I really only treated her as you. Everything I failed to give you when we were young became regrets. I just wanted to compensate you from back then, but I was wrong. My mind was muddled. You've already punished me enough. Can we stop fighting, okay? I won't even ask who that man is. Just tell him to get lost. Let's go home, all right? I know you can't forgive me right away, but I'm willing to wait for the day you restart with me. You love me. 7 years together, you can't just let it go. 7 years? Sam, you know it too. You knew everything. Yet you still did all those disgusting things. Even when I confronted you directly, you were still fooling me. You say you wanted to compensate me, but in reality you were just finding that excuse for liking a young girl. Don't tell me you never secretly compared me with her, one young and beautiful, worshipping you like an idol, the other aging, passion gone, and now you dare frame all of this as wanting to compensate me? Sam, the first time you slept with her, who was in your heart? Who did you call out? Who did you see? When you tangled with her again and again in front of that floor-to-ceiling window, did you really never think about the plans we once had there? Stop making excuses. You still count as a decent human if you show up here on time a month from now. If you don't, we'll see each other in court. With that, Victoria used all her strength to throw away the ring, one that Sam had secretly hammered by hand for a long time in the study. 6 years ago, when he proposed to her, it had been a ring just like this. One he made himself. Back then, someone bumped into him. The ring slipped from his grasp and fell into a sewer. Now that the same ring appeared again, Victoria only wished to see it in the sewer once more.